right. Hello, Facebook and all streaming platforms you might find us on. So this is a really super exciting episode. It is not our usual Moscow Mitch Monday. It is something completely different. Today we are excited because we are going to have a candidate interviews. But welcome to the Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee special live stream. Thrilled to be presenting the three leading contenders for the honor of taking on Moscow Mitch in this fall's election. So that's something that I think a lot of people want to hear about. I'm excited about it. Denise, are you excited about it?
You know I'm excited. I'm fired up and I'm ready to go to ditch Mitch and a better Kentucky. I'm ready for it.
Nice. So as folks might know, if you've been here before, we like to start every live stream with what our protest signs say today, because as you might know, we aren't like a PAC. We're not some dark money thing. We're not wealthy donors trying to influence the election. We are a bunch of scrappy volunteer activists who want to get rid of Mitch. That is our laser 100% focus. And so we like to think of this as a digital demonstration against Moscow Mitch. So I'm Aaron Viles. I'm streaming here from Childsburg, Lexington. And today my sign says 35 years of Mitch. And this is important. Question mark, exclamation point, question mark, exclamation point. Kentucky deserves better. So that's what we got. That's what I'm very excited to be holding virtually right now in front of all our viewers. What's your sign, Denise? Who are you and what do you say?
Well, my name is Denise Gray, and I'm coming to you from the north side of Lexington, Kentucky. And I have so many things to choose from, but my protest sign says justice for Breonna. That's what it says. Let's do it.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right, so a little bit about this page. If you're looking at us on Facebook right now, you'll look down in the corner. You'll see like, oh, they have 800 likes. I got an announcement today. We had 800 likes, which I was excited about that. 800 is pretty cool because we had,
I wasn't.
Money. Like 800 is better than 500. But 800 is not as cool as 1,000. So I am putting out the challenge. If you like what you're streaming tonight, please do like and share and ask your friends to sign up. Do it with a direct message. It's way more compelling than, other things. But yeah, we want to get to 1,000. We'd like to get to, multiple thousands, but we are building our platform right now, our chance to talk to folks directly, talk to voters directly, give you what you need to be a part of this fight to get rid of Mitch McConnell, right? So as our mission is pretty straightforward. We want to retire the current majority Senate leader because by educating people about how his agenda hurts Kentucky. And it's pretty straightforward, but a lot of people aren't paying attention to the details. We want to pay attention to the details, every day, what Mitch is up to and how it is not in Kentucky's best interest. So that's kind of what we're thinking about and what we're working on. A few things to remind people. I want to talk about the Mitch's greatest hits. So, we have been living in this crazy world for quite a while now. We had a pandemic and we've had an economic collapse, and now we've had these amazing protests, these historic protests against police brutality and for civil rights. But
Black lives that matter. That's what's been going on. We'll say it here. Black lives matter.
They absolutely matter. And we haven't not done enough as a nation to wrestle with that. And I think, it's hard to look out on the streets right now and not see some hope because these are truly historic moments. We have not seen anything like this for 50 years at least, which is amazing. So, but where has Mitch been for all of this historic efforts, all these historic opportunities to lead? Where has Mitch been? So let's go through the greatest hits. So coronavirus hit. People were concerned. What was happening? We had Nero fiddling, talking about how great China had been and tweeting randomly things that had nothing to do with coronavirus, but was, boosting the stock market. Where was Mitch? He first moved on coronavirus to make sure that any eventual manufacturer of a vaccine was able to profit outrageously. That was his first move on addressing the coronavirus crisis, was protecting drug manufacturers' profits. Let that sink in.
What brings home that he's not standing up for the regular people of Kentucky. He's standing up for those big businesses. Pay attention, everybody. Pay attention.
And then, this is like the 13th of March, I believe, when people were thinking about maybe we need to like start shutting things down. Mitch was in Louisville, not because he was, meeting with the governor to figure out a great plan to address coronavirus. He was in Louisville to celebrate Justin Walker, who is his appointment, a underqualified, a not qualified judicial appointment to a circuit court, a federal court. He was, being invested or whatever, his investiture program or ceremony. He brought Brett Kavanaugh with him to Louisville because, Justin had clerked for Brett Kavanaugh or something. And so they all were celebrating their, domination of the judicial process, that, third branch of government, which Mitch has been laser focused on for, his entire time as Senate Majority Leader. So, yeah, he wasn't, when he wasn't taking part of the ceremonies and the parties, he was on the phone, but he wasn't on the phone to, Pelosi to try to negotiate some sort of response to coronavirus. He was on the phone to older judges, urging them to retire so he could appoint a younger judge, a more conservative judge to those seats. Apparently those phone calls paid off because he then got to, nominate this guy, Justin Walker. And, newsflash, Justin Walker sailed through his confirmation hearing to the second most powerful court in the land on a partisan vote, 12-10 in the Senate. And that vote actually might come up in the full floor of the Senate as soon as tomorrow. So he wants to, slam another not qualified, uber conservative judge onto the second most important court in the land. And what's interesting about this Walker character is when he was first appointed for the federal bench, he had about 17 of his former kind of colleagues and classmates signed a letter saying how great he was. Even though I think the American Bar Association said he wasn't qualified because he hadn't overseen any trials. So then,
that sounds very familiar.
Of those 17 folks who signed that original letter, now I think about 7 have dropped off the letter to say, well, actually, now that you're trying to put him in the second most powerful court of the land, we think that's not the best idea. So it's not a uniform amount of support that Justin Walker has, unfortunately, for him. But, hopefully that will inspire some people to do a few things to push back against his nomination. And take to Twitter, take to Facebook, sign a petition. We can push back against Walker. He's not qualified. He's not the direction our court needs to go. All right, so that's part of Mitch's greatest hits for coronavirus. There's more. Right now he is calling the Democrats partisan and horrible because they want to extend the unemployment insurance benefit, that federal benefit of $600 a week. They're allowing people to, live right now in the wake of the coronavirus economic shutdown. He's now declared a red line that he will not allow any bills to go forward unless there are legal protections for irresponsible corporations. So, that's when he says greedy trial lawyers. What he really means is he is going to protect greedy corporations and allow them to jeopardize their workers' health without any sort of accountability. That's what he wants to do. Nothing happens unless that happens. That's Mitch. And of course, one of his greatest hits, Denise, is that he thought that states should go bankrupt instead of getting federal assistance. So
that's the biggest of them all.
Cities and states that don't have any money because, no one's been paying very many taxes. There's no fees, because there's been no economic activity. They are struggling. And what does Mitch want to do? Make them go bankrupt, which they legally can't.
Right.
Why not?
I mean, why not? I mean, it's Mitch. I mean, hey.
Whew. Man, he's been a leader. What a leader. I don't know why we've got this committee to retire him. He has been such a leader. And then one new one that just came this week when he was challenged by the media about Trump's horrible tweets, calling the 75-year-old Catholic social justice activist. I'm sure you saw the horrific video of this poor man being shoved by the police, his head bleeding.
Not this year.
Yeah, and then Trump took to Twitter to call him like some deep Antifa plant who was trying to do some crazy like technological assessment of the police so we could jam. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. Well, almost the craziest thing I've ever seen on Trump's Twitter timeline, right? Because every time you say that, there's like some new thing. But yeah, so he was saying that this 75-year-old guy was Antifa and he kind of got what he deserved. And he probably was faking it. And then when Mitch McConnell was challenged, like, "Hey, do you support this?" he dodged the question. He wouldn't condemn that effort. So, that's what we got. All right, so that's been Mitch's greatest hits on coronavirus. I'm sure we missed some stuff. If we had more time, we could do the more exhaustive list. But just a refresher for you on what he's been doing in the wake of all these major catastrophes and major challenges that our nation's been wrestling with. He hasn't been leading. He's not been leading.
And so
voting though, Denise.
Yes, I would like to follow that up with, with his greatest hits with the importance of voting. The absentee request deadline is fast approaching. The deadline is on June 15th. You must request by that date in order to vote on the 23rd. Is that correct? Yes, it is.
If you don't want to vote in person, which
I would recommend you all. We've seen what happens when you don't vote in person. I mean, when you don't send in your absentee ballot. Look at Georgia. We saw that debacle that took place. Let's avoid that by going ahead and requesting your ballot. You can go to govotekentucky.com and it will take you to the secretary. Yes, indeed.
Here's my ballot. Here is my ballot. It is not filled out yet. I'm waiting till the end of our show to fill out my ballot.
Well, I've already filled mine out and sent it back. And I need for you all to, I have, but I am very unbiased and we just deserve the best leader. And, we have three great possibilities. We have Charles Booker, we have Mike, and we also have Amy. Each of them are qualified in their own unique ways, and they all bring something different to the table. They all have that talent to defeat Mitch in November, and that's what we're here for. So no matter who wins, our goal is to what, Aaron?
Beat Mitch. We got to beat Mitch. It's that easy.
So those back in.
Yeah, if you saw the video yesterday from Georgia, you do not want to be a part of that here in Kentucky. They've got one voting location for Fayette County. You'll be in line, some amazingly long line at Kroger Field. And while there's a side of me that'd like to go to Kroger Field, I don't think that's the time to visit it, right? Standing in line for hours in who knows what kind of weather, to do this. So let's think about this. Let's get on our game. Let's go voteky.com. Do it you've got 5 days to request that ballot and get it in. So, hey, we've got an amazing show, and we want to just, let folks know we're going to have Mike Broihier. He's waiting right now, so we're going to cut to it so we can get to him. Then we've got Representative Charles Booker, and then Amy McGrath. So we're going to have a chance to hear from all three of the major candidates. We are a non-partisan organization in terms of the primary. We are not endorsing in the primary, but we know that you're going to be endorsing. You're going to be filling out your ballot and mailing it in. And we wanted to give you a chance to hear from these folks because there's commercials. Don't make your decision based on commercials.
Do your research. It is your job to do the research or listen to us.
Do the research.
We're going to give you just the facts. That's all
we have good questions. So the way this is going to go down, we have basically 4 questions that we're asking every candidate. And we have one specific question for them that's based on kind of what they've been doing in their campaign. And so I think it's going to be a great, great show. It's the first time we've ever done this, folks. So bear with us. Hopefully the technical difficulties will be minimal.
And like our page. How about that?
Yes, really critical. Go like our Facebook page, share it. And then after we come back, after we talk to the candidates, we'll tell you a few other things about the what the committee's up to and some things you can take part in. But without further ado, here is our friend Mike Broihier.
Hey, Mike. Hey, and there's a little
Good evening. How
delay,
are you,
but it's
sir?
okay.
I think I need to give you some.
Course, just talking about your greatest hits. That would be
Yes,
awesome.
there
I
are
got to
worse
say,
hits than his greatest.
Go ahead, Mike.
I got something for your Moscow Mitch fans.
Oh, nice. What does that say
So,
on the bottom?
Oh.
What did it say on the bottom? Can I?
it says,
Red, comrades.
McConnell, restore our democracy.
Oh, that's
But here's
fantastic.
here's the funny thing about that poster. You will see it in another candidate's advertisement and raising money as a fundraiser. And if you look really, really closely at that poster, standing right next to it is me. And it's a photo from Fancy Farm. So the artwork that our campaign paid for and my dumb face are being used as a fundraiser for another candidate. But no hard feelings.
Well, I'm sure you get a cut, right? Like you get a percentage, like 3%. That's hilarious. All right, so hey, as you heard, we're a digital demonstration against Mitch McConnell, and as such, we don't ever want to lose sight of that. And so we ask every guest, what does your protest sign say today?
My protest sign says, Mayor Fisher, resign.
Oh.
And the reason I have that is I read I said it Monday during the candidate debate on KET when the three candidates were asked and the other two candidates kind of hemmed and hawed. And I said, no, he should resign. But after seeing the police report on the Breonna Taylor shooting, where injuries to Ms. Taylor were listed as none, it was just the worst piece of whitewashing I've ever seen. Questions about the body cams from David McAtee. No body cams were running. And then we see the police report today from the shooting Breonna Taylor. Injuries to Ms. Taylor, none. Time to go. If you lost control of your police department and they're killing people in the streets, it's time to go. So that's what my sign says today.
Yeah, that's absolutely appropriate. That's insane. I had somebody talk about if an officer turns off their body cam, they should be charged with destroying evidence. It's outrageous. They're being allowed to do that. And I know there are great cops out there, but what we're seeing right now is a lot of horrible cops. I think it was Chris Rock who made the comment, "A few bad apples." There are certain professions we can't allow bad apples. You don't want the bad apple airline pilot. He lands most of the time. This is too important, and they are definitely. Who are they serving and who are they protecting? It's not clear in these instances. So, all right. So we got 5 questions for you. First one: after 35 years of Mitch, why are you the best candidate to beat Mitch McConnell in November, Mike?
I'm the best candidate to beat Mitch McConnell if we're talking just from beating Mitch McConnell, because Mitch McConnell has won because he's kept a stranglehold on the rural counties. And you can win Louisville, you can win Lexington, but Mitch McConnell takes the rural counties. As a veteran, as a teacher, and as a farmer, like an honest to God, bend over and pick the crops farmer, I can run in all 120 counties. If people want to talk, people want to talk city issues, great. If they want to talk national issues, international issues, that's fine. But where Mitch McConnell has held a stranglehold is those counties that look a lot like the other, like 110 out of 120 Kentucky counties. I can compete in all of them.
That's great.
So, Mike, throughout this election season, we've dealt with the pandemic, we've dealt with the shutdown, we've dealt with dealing with police brutality, we've dealt with people coming together to stand up and say Black Lives Matter. What have you done these past 2 weeks to show that Black lives do matter?
Well, Denise, I'll tell you, I didn't think it was my place to insert myself in the argument or into the discussion and to lead from the podium, but doesn't mean I was more than happy to go and march with teachers and march with the sisters and to go to Danville. That was Louisville. To go to Danville and stand with the protesters there. But I cannot tell you how strong and pure and beautiful the words from people who are coming off the speakers' podiums. And I thought to myself, what do I have to add to this other than my physical support? And so I've kept my face out of it. But on the other hand, behind the scenes, I've been working with a huge coalition of people to generate a 5-point criminal justice overhaul plan to take the Senate with me. That is really, really far reaching. And so on one hand, yeah, I'll go, I'll stand, I'll march, I'll pray, I'll sing. But behind the scenes, I've been accessing this huge body of hugely diverse and broad and deep coalition of people who support me to craft a 5-point plan for criminal justice overhaul.
I mean, can you say Black Lives Matter?
I can say Black Lives Matter. Are you kidding me?
Thank you. That's what I was waiting for you to say. So once you get to the Senate, what bills will you propose to help to bring about change in that area?
Well, I think the first order of business is clearing off Mitch McConnell's desk the 300 bills that have, particularly those who've got overwhelming bipartisan support, like universal background checks, getting guns off the streets, Violence Against Women Act. Those need to go through first. I'll tell you what, for me, this criminal justice overhaul bill that I've got, actually not the whole bill, but I've got the plan written. That's first. But the most important focus of my campaign has been, from last July, has been social and economic justice. And for me, it is universal basic income and a ground up single payer healthcare system. We can take every single person in America that's in poverty now out of poverty, and I have a way to pay for it.
Gotcha.
And then you do have the 5-point plan. Is that legislation that you would enact if you were in the Senate, or is that, I haven't spent time with it? I'm sorry.
No, absolutely. And I think the most controversial part of it is a criminal justice overhaul commission. And I think that's probably going to be the most foreign to people. But we've had commissions in the past that have studied this, but none of them had a binding mandate. And so this commission is going to be comprised of solely of people of color. And I went on my way to mention Native Americans, because way too often they get left out of the conversation. And we've got 300 treaties with the Native American tribes. We've broken every single one of them. So I wanted to make sure they were included. But this commission will be made up solely of people of color, and it will have a binding mandate. And that means that when they are done with their recommendations on criminal justice, prosecution, imprisonment, housing, a broad spectrum of things. And I'll tell you what else I included. I specifically called it out: LGBTQ, trans women who are, of color, who are subject to incredible levels of violence. But when they're done the recommendation, it's going to force Congress to vote on it. And so by name, our representatives can say yes or no whether to support this, and we can hold them accountable. And that's very, very important to me, because we need to know who the people are by name who do not support moving this forward.
Right.
Gotcha. Great. Well, so you put a lot of your campaign energy into promoting the idea of a universal basic income. What is that, and how would you say that contrasts to Mitch McConnell's announcement that he won't extend federal unemployment insurance, that additional $600 a week after it expires in July, no matter what's going on in the economy?
Well, I think you covered it in the greatest hits. Their first compulsion every single time is to give money to corporations. It's to point to the stock market. They've tied their star to the success of the stock market. And we give money as a country to corporations all the time. We've had 40 years of the Laffer curve and trickle down economy. It doesn't work. The jury's back in. It doesn't work. But if you give money to the middle class, to the working class, the working poor, and the poor, they spend it immediately. They spend every penny of it. And in local communities, it generates incredible velocity. So a universal basic income of $1,200 per adult, $400 per child will literally lift people out of poverty. And so our choice is this: do we give money to corporations, or do we give it to people? I say we give it to people.
People
Great.
all the way. Give it to the people. So, if you do not get the nomination, do you pledge to support the Democratic nominee?
Absolutely.
Previously we had Governor Andy now. We had Rocky that was out there on the ground talking with the people, hyping him up and going out to the voters. Are you willing to do that for the Democratic nominee if you do not win?
I sure will. And I'll say this, Denise, if you look at the videos of Rocky, you'll see me and Rocky together in a lot of the places. We were in Bardstown. We're the only two people who were pushing Andy. We were in Muhlenberg County once together. And so I crossed paths with, back in the 2019 cycle, I crossed paths with Rocky many times. And the great thing about him is he would show up. He didn't have an entourage. He didn't, you could just walk into a room and start talking to people. And so me as someone who was early in my campaign, it was a great example because you don't need to have a posse. You don't need to have a murdered out SUV or anything like that. You show up, you talk to people, you answer their questions. And when I saw the way he interacted, I said, I want to be like him when I grow up.
Me too. Me too. I want to be like Rocky as well.
Hey, so an issue that's failed to get very much attention in this race so far is climate change. How would you address the climate change if you got to Washington? And would you campaign on your position after the primary, where there's a very clear contrast between, acknowledging the crisis and Mitch's hard and fast obstruction on addressing the issue?
Well, I have a plan called Just Transition to a Green Economy. And basically at the root of it is turning not just Kentucky, but all 8 Appalachian coal producing states, that the coal producing region, into green energy hub for the eastern half of the United States. There's a lot of good things about this. First of all, it brings a lot of infrastructure and jobs. And if you happen to believe in climate change like I do, you put a huge dent in the carbon footprint. And so whether it's putting in solar or wind or reforesting, geologically unstable surface mine areas and things like that, you can put people to work and you build the infrastructure to support that, and industry follows infrastructure. And so it's not just jobs for for people now, but their children and their grandchildren. So the great thing about this program is you don't even have to believe in climate change, but you can explain, the payback period for solar is 7 years. In 7 years, you begin producing free energy. And even the people who consider themselves to be, I'm a fiscal conservative, you can say, well, in 7 years, we start getting free energy. They don't even have to believe in climate change. They just have to believe in money. So we put a dent in the carbon footprint. We put people to work. We improve the infrastructure of not just Kentucky, but all 8 Appalachian coal producing states, which we owe them.
Absolutely. So I think that's all of our questions, Mike. Thank you so much for spending the time with us.
And it's great to see you again, Mike.
Can I mention one thing? Do we have any time left?
Yeah, absolutely. Any final words you want to leave us with, please?
Go for it.
Okay. All right. So since I started my campaign, if people look at me funny, I always say it's judges. It's about the judges. And Mitch McConnell has told us, I'm changing America forever. And he's talking about judges. And you guys hit it in the greatest hits. And no matter what is going on, whether it's the impeachment hearings or the black jewel miners losing their money or our great cities burning or the global pandemic, McConnell stays focused on judges. And so we have to take him at his word. When he and Lindsey Graham want 60-year-old judges to retire, right now 1 in 5 judges is a Trump appointee. They want to make it at least half. And so we can get pulled into the moment of whether it's impeachment or the pandemic or our great cities burning, but McConnell keeps focused on what he knows will change America. And these judges are hostile to women, people of color, LGBTQ persons, labor. immigrants, women, and that's what he's doing behind the scene. So whether you support me or not, just know I know what Mitch McConnell's program is, and I'm trying to stay focused on it because he's staying focused on it. And so it needs to at least be pretty high in our brain that he is literally trying to change America and not for the good.
And that's why we need to stay focused and make sure we vote Mitch out in November.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Mike, this has been great. We really appreciate your time. Thank you for being so generous with us. Just, a scrappy volunteer effort that's trying to get the word out about how Mitch is failing our Commonwealth. And I will say this, all the candidates, I think, have done a great job of, making that contrast. But you've really brought some interesting stuff to the conversation, and I think it's been incredibly valuable. So thanks for your time, Mike.
Thank you.
Plus, I added 1 like to your page. So,
well, thank you. Now, thank you. Cheerio.
That's great. Now, can you get Andrew Yang to do it as well? Because he's very helpful. All right. Take care, Mike.
That would be great.
Have a great evening. Bye. See you.
All right. So that was our first interview. And we are now going to be able to go to Charles Booker and hear from him as well. It's been a lot of fun talking to Mike Broihier. Definitely a great perspective on politics. But next up is our friend Representative Charles Booker. Let me go ahead and cue this up.
Out of Louisville, yeah.
All right, so we are incredibly excited to have with us tonight for our candidate live interviews. We are interviewing Representative Charles Booker. And welcome to the Mitch.
Welcome, sir. Welcome.
Committee. Thank you both. It's good to be with you.
Awesome.
Yes.
And this is a digital demonstration. So we're a group of activists. We're a nonprofit, all volunteer group that's come together to basically do everything in our power to ditch Mitch in November. So we are, as an entity, not endorsing in the primary, but we definitely want to make sure everyone who's paying attention to us has a chance to hear from the candidates. So we are very, very glad to have you with us. And as it's a digital demonstration, we'd like to start every interview with asking people what their protest sign says today.
My sign every day is "My life matters too."
That's right.
You all may have heard me speaking that on the House floor, even when my mic was cut off. I honestly was not saying that simply for myself. I was speaking for a lot of people who feel invisible and feel ignored and unheard. And so that's my poster every single day. My life matters too. Every Kentucky, we matter too.
Fantastic. All right, so right into it though. After 35 years of Mitch, why are you the best candidate to beat Mitch McConnell in November?
We got to get rid of Mitch McConnell, and we got to do it yesterday. You mentioned 35 years, so I'm 35 years old. He was elected 2 weeks after I was born. And the guy has made it his business to screw us for my entire life. And, the only way you can try to beat him, he's an institution, is to build something different. And Kentuckians are demanding change. And this is the moment for it. We're dealing with the height of racial tension right now in our Commonwealth and in our country. We're dealing with the pandemic. We're dealing with the economy falling out for so many people. And the only way that you're going to beat him is inspiring people to stand up and fight back. And so I'm the one to do that because that's my life story. I'm from the poorest zip code in Kentucky. I'm leading with moral clarity, not poll-tested answers, not consultants, not big donors, but regular people fighting for an end to poverty and dealing with structural issues like racism and inequity. And if we come together, if we meet this moment, we will beat Mitch McConnell because we can do anything. But then after that, we can transform our future. And that's what my campaign's about.
Nice. So throughout this election season, we have gone through some of the most trying times from the pandemic, the shutdown, to, fighting police brutality. And out of all that, people standing up for the rights of Black and African-American people who have been harmed unjustly. So what have you done these past 2 weeks to stand up for Black lives in the Black Lives Matter movement?
Yeah, I think this is such a critical moment. You know, the crying out that you're seeing, people are grieving in the streets. They are mourning in the streets. And I have joined, one, because I'm mourning too, especially very specifically, Breonna Taylor was close to my family. She was really good friends with my cousin TJ, who was murdered. And, you know, when you're from a community that never gets listened to, where it seems like justice is denied to you, or that you are going to be seen as a deadly weapon before being seen as a human being, you know what it feels like to seem like the only avenue you have is to scream out loud and to stand in the streets because nobody cares about you.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of marching for a lot of different issues, for environmental justice, common sense gun safety, standing up for our teachers. And when this happened, I didn't waste any time. In fact, all my staff joined me. And, you know, I even had tear gas thrown at me. Some of y'all may have seen that. And Representative Scott did too. And, you know, my work has been honoring the pain, showing that I'm there with them, because that's what a leader should do, because we're family and family sticks up for one another, but also using my platform. I'm a state elected official, working with our mayor, our Metro Council, and our governor to provide immediate accountability, pushing for citizen review of police shootings with subpoena power. I got a bipartisan coalition that's working on that right now. Our mayor is now in support of it. That's critical. Banning no-knock warrants. I also have a bipartisan coalition. So I'm still in the state house, y'all. So
Yeah.
once I'm in this race, I still got some time to get some work done before I go to Washington. But banning no-knock warrants is one of the things that we need to immediately do as well. And our House Democratic leadership are pushing for that too. And then transparency. You know, if officers are involved in the taking of a life, the killing of someone, that's serious. And that should not be a norm. That is not public safety. And making sure the community has trust means we need to invest in strengthening those bonds, but also means we need to invest in public safety, which means more than just law enforcement, community policing and mental health support, in involving the voices in the community so that we can actually feel safe. I'm committed to that.
So, if elected and you get to the Senate, what solutions will you propose to support everything that you've been doing here in the state on the federal level?
So to be brief, I'll give you two examples as it relates to law enforcement. We need to have national data that tracks how these incidents happen, because it's clear it's happening across the country. So we need a police system review board that can track these instances, determine how funding allocations should be addressed accordingly, deal with accreditation if law enforcement agencies are not addressing and handling civil rights, or are violating them, or dealing and engaging in brutality, or not training appropriately. But understanding that that is really just scratching the surface. We need a complete system level change, which means, again, as I mentioned before, investing in more than just the law enforcement mechanism of public safety, which also means we need to protect pensions. But then another component is we need to have racial impact assessments for every policy, every budgetary decision. That is something I've worked on at the state level. We need that in Washington to address biases, blind spots for every decision that's made. Because when a trigger's pulled, when someone's thrown to the ground and their rights are taken away, that is not the only moment. That's the fruit. The root of it is the structural racism and inequity within our institutions, within our society. And we got to root it out, and I'm committed to it.
That's great. Thank you, Representative Booker. So your campaign has had really an impressive couple of days. So over the past few days, you've had the endorsement from Matt Jones, you've had Bernie and AOC, the Lexington Herald Leader, and the Herald Leader actually referred to your bold and brave ideas. Now, do you think that those ideas will work in a state that Trump won by 30 points in 2016?
I know they will. And, you know, the reason I know is because I'm listening to the people of Kentucky. The issue of poverty is not a partisan thing. A lot of Kentuckians are struggling. And when you talk from a place of moral clarity, and I share my own story when I talk about these issues, because we're so used to being divided along partisan lines that we don't listen to one another. But as a type 1 diabetic, I've had to ration my insulin because I couldn't afford it and feeding my daughters until payday, and I nearly died from diabetic ketoacidosis. That's not a Democrat or Republican thing. And when I talk about expanding healthcare and saying that we should have Medicare for all so that nobody has to make that decision, people understand where I'm coming from. And I have had folks that have told me, hey, Charles, I voted for Trump, but I'm going to vote for you because I know you give a damn about me. And you can edit that out, but I think
For yourself.
that is really the moment we're in. Folks want to know that they can trust who's going to stand up and fight for them. And people know where I stand because they know where I've stood. They know I'm going to fight for labor because I've been in those picket lines. The teachers know I'm going to fight for them because I was raising all types of sand to block those harmful legislation to take away pensions. And so I think it just shows the type of leadership. And we're gonna win a lot of progress. A Green New Deal, of course we can do it. Universal basic income, yes, we can do it. And you know how? By listening to folks, meeting them where they are, stepping out of our comfort zone and showing up. And if leaders do it, then everyone else will say, okay, you know what? I can do it too. I can do it at the local level. I can do it at the state level, in the school board. And I'm gonna support Charles because even if I don't agree with him on everything, I know he means what he says and he's fighting for us. That's my message, and it's resonating. And as you can see with these endorsements, it's taking root.
So I hate to do this to you, but if you do not get the nomination, are you willing? Do you pledge to support the Democratic nominee?
Absolutely. We got to get rid of Mitch McConnell just as much. In fact, probably more so than Donald Trump. And we really got to get rid of Donald Trump. And the reason that I am running this race and why I am the candidate to win is we got to inspire people, young people, people of color, folks in Appalachia. We got to encourage people to believe again. And I'm running the race to do that and not pandering to folks. And we're building a lot of infrastructure. So I have hundreds of volunteers that are crushing it. And I expect to win. We will win. But the bigger victory is bringing more people into the fold. And we're going to use that for whoever's the nominee. And I fully expect that it'll be.
Great. Well, an issue that has failed to get a lot of attention in this race so far is climate change. I did just hear your reference to the Green New Deal. How would you address the climate crisis in Washington? And would you campaign on your position after the primary, where there's a very clear contrast between Mitch's obstruction on any action on climate change?
You better believe I will. Yes, I've been marching for this for years. And so I'm from the West End, as I mentioned. And we have Rubbertown, which is a big part of the West End where all these chemical plants, asthma rates are high. You can rub your finger on the side of a home, have black residue on it. We can't fish in our ponds, they're contaminated. We got brown fields around us. We're in a heat island. We're dealing with all these ills. So we've been fighting for this for years. And getting endorsed by the Sunrise Movement meant a lot to me because I was telling the story that the climate crisis is not just a talking point, and it's not just something to get animated and excited about because they're talking about it at a national level, but it really comes down to your table, the kitchen table, and sustainable jobs and clean water and housing and infrastructure, like investing in hospitals, like rural hospitals, and sustaining our economy. And so this is the fight about our future. I would not be running this race if I weren't committed to that fight. So yes, I'm gonna take it right to Mitch McConnell.
All right. Well, hey, thank you so much for your time, Representative Booker. Good luck on the campaign trail. And I guess we'll be seeing how this all ends not too far down the road, huh?
Yep, we got 2 weeks to go. We need everybody to, if you're still trying to get your absentee ballot, do that. You have until June 15th. Election day is June 23rd. And if you are willing to get involved in our campaign, we're the ones to do it. We got to win. We got to win our future. Go to bookerforkentucky.com. Right behind me.
All right. Thanks again.
Great to see you. And
All right.
best of luck.
All right. Was Representative Charles Booker
Booker.
talked to, and has been having a great week on the campaign trail. We're glad to bring you his voice. And then now we have our kind of last contestant. And I did just point out, this is my absentee ballot right here. I am very excited to fill it out after the show. I'm going to do that. I'm going to make up my mind with these individuals. And I did want to point out, there are a lot of names right here. These are all, I'm a Democrat. This is the Democratic ballot. And there are a lot of names. So you might wonder, why is your show, Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee, why is it not 3 hours? Because there are all these names. How come you are not having these names on? Like Andrew Maynard, Maggie Jo Hilliard, Mary Ann Tubin, Benny Smith, John Sharpenstein, Eric Rothmuller. So those folks are not on because we did a kind of quick threshold. We looked to see where their campaigns were. We found some of them online, not all of them. And we set a threshold. You had to have at least as many, I think it was 2,000 Facebook likes to be invited, which we thought, if you're really seriously running a campaign for a Senate seat, you're going to need to have
statewide state. Yeah. You gotta have more than 2,000.
Yeah. So here's the thing. It's totally hypocritical because we only got 800 right now. So I'm going to make one more plug. Please do like and share the page because I'd like to, by next week, have 2,000 likes so we could at least be on our own show. But at any rate, what we're going to do now, we're queuing up Amy McGrath, our interview with Amy McGrath, and should be a lot of fun to listen to. Should be informative. Definitely was one I was looking forward to having a conversation with. And let's see, technical difficulties. How are we doing? I think we are bringing it to you right. All right, so welcome, Amy McGrath. We're very excited that you can join us here tonight on the Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee special live stream. And obviously, you were the first announced. You've been the front runner. You've had a very impressive kind of run of this campaign. Interest of full disclosure, I feel like I need to tell people I did work for you on your congressional campaign and was very honored to be a field organizer out in Bath County and Montgomery County and Clark County. But I did want to just say, we're a little bit of a scrappy volunteer effort. We really don't like Mitch McConnell. We're a digital demonstration against Moscow Mitch. So if you were out protesting today, what would your sign say?
Defeat Mitch, defend democracy.
All right now, I like that.
Actually, I think I could get that T-shirt on your website. I feel like maybe that's
Is it on their website?
I like it.
It's a good one. I like it. All right. So first question though, after 35 years of Mitch, why are you the best candidate to beat him in November?
Sure. Well, I'm running to be a voice for everyday Kentuckians, something that we haven't really had in 35 years under Mitch McConnell. And look, I have been able to compete with him in terms of funds in a way he's never seen. And I'm just a Kentuckian. I'm somebody with a background. I have a military background. And everybody that's running brings something to the table. I think what makes me different, is what I bring to the table is 24 years of experience in the military, national security, the idea of seeing things, not everything through a political lens, but seeing it through the lens of a wife and a mother, and a United States Marine. But I have been able to, we have an incredible amount of grassroots support that we have been able to generate since we launched this campaign. In the first few weeks, we had all 120 counties support this campaign. And the average contribution is $36. And we are able to compete with Mitch McConnell toe to toe. And he has never had that. So think about that. So we all bring different things to the fight, but that's what I bring to the fight.
Great.
Wonderful. And so, Amy, this election season has been struck with just about every single weird thing that we can say that's happened. We've had the pandemic. We've had the total shutdown. We've had people stand up against police brutality. And we've also had people come together to stand up and say Black Lives Matter. What have you done the past 2 weeks to make a stand for and say Black Lives Matter?
Right. Well, first of all, what we've seen in this country with the tragedies of the death of Breonna Taylor, the murder of George Floyd, they're all terrible tragedies. And that's why you're seeing so many people here in Kentucky and around the country stand up and protest and demonstrate, or, go to vigils, memorial services. That's what I did last weekend. I stood in Louisville in Central Park, and with really hundreds. I think there were 1,000 people there, and it was an interfaith vigil. I've done the same thing in Lexington, and I stood next to Catholic nuns on my right side, and on my left, people of different ethnicities and faiths. And you know what? We're all standing up for the same thing, and that is for the right thing. That we're all Americans. That Black Lives Matter, okay? And that what's happening for way too long, Denise, is wrong.
Yes.
We don't have the 5-step plan to fix it, okay? But what we do have is we can stand up. And so that's what I've been doing. I've also been going to talk to leaders, local leaders, community leaders, on how do we make things better, forums, as you know, to be a part of this, because I want to be a part of the change for the better. Okay.
And if elected, what bills will you propose or support on the federal level in Washington, D.C.?
Well, just to tackle police brutality and to change the culture, which is a part of the problem right now with policing. There's a lot of bills I would get behind. I know the Congressional Black Caucus right now in the House has put forth a very large package, and there's some really good things in there. For example, chokeholds. I know no police officer that thinks chokeholds is something we need to do as a tactic. So we should have been getting rid of that a long time ago. We should have an independent investigation anytime something like this happens, where you pull it out of the unit. Senator Tammy Duckworth has already had a bill on that. I would co-sponsor that yesterday if I could in the Senate. Body cams. We should have body cameras for every member of the police force around this country. And we should have racial bias training. I'm a big proponent of training as somebody in the military. I think it works. And these are just some things, but we can't stop there. We have to do more. And what do I mean by that? One of the things that we've seen with these protests is it's not just the police brutality. It is the longstanding racial injustice that we're seeing, that we've seen for way too long. Black Americans die at twice the rate from COVID-19 as white Americans. This is wrong. We have to tackle the racial inequities in education, in opportunities, and in healthcare. And so we have to be committed to that, and I am.
That's great, thank you. So the critique I've seen of you, both online and now in television ads, is that Kentucky deserves better than a pro-Trump moderate Democrat. How do you respond to that charge?
Well, first of all, I never called myself a pro-Trump Democrat. That was a headline that was written by a newspaper editor based on the fact that I said I would work with this president to do what is right for Kentucky. And wouldn't you want that? Wouldn't you want that in a candidate? And I said specifically with regards to prescription drug prices that this current president has said was important to him. Wow, it's important to me too. And I would work with him. Infrastructure, he has said it's important to him. I think it's important too. And so that's why what I said that. But here's the thing. And I will work with any president, whether he or she someday wears a red jersey or a blue jersey, to do what is right for Kentucky. At the same time, and what makes me different than Mitch McConnell is, I will stand up to any president, whether he or she wears a red jersey or a blue jersey, if that president does something that is wrong for Kentucky or against the Constitution of the United States of America that I swore to defend 6 times in my life. And that is what makes me different than Mitch McConnell.
Thank you.
That's a great answer. Okay, so Amy, if you do not get the nomination, do you pledge to support the Democratic nominee?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think, look, who doesn't want to defeat Mitch McConnell?
Right. Would you be comfortable campaigning for either of the leading candidates?
I think both of those individuals are public servants. I think they're, that we're all trying to get we're trying to finish the mission.
Great. So one thing I like to think of, and this past election gave me hope, right? So as we're dealing with this pandemic, the fact that we have Governor Andy Beshear, in Frankfurt gives me such, hope for a better. I know that this pandemic was handled so much better than had that election gone the other way. And I keep coming back to the fact that that campaign was effective for a lot of reasons, many of which should be applied here in this race, right? We've got a very unpopular Republican that was being run against. And they put, I think Andy put the commonwealth before the party. That was very clear. And the other thing is, after the election, after the primary, Rocky was out on the campaign trail maybe more days than Andy, because Andy was the attorney general at the time, and Rocky, I think, had a little more time in his hands. It was amazing to see the campaigning. So I truly hope that whatever happens, after the June 23rd voting deadline, I hope that these 3 strong candidates all work together to take down the evil emperor, because
like you said, it's about our commonwealth. It's about getting better leadership in Washington, D.C. that will speak up for the people of Kentucky. And either one of you all will do a great job, and I'm sure you will represent us to the best of your abilities.
So final question. You haven't had to tackle locusts during this campaign season. You've seen a lot of different challenges come up. One of them that is, I guess, maybe not as apparent, but is happening in the background right now, hasn't been discussed much on the campaign trail, and that's climate change.
Yeah.
And I want to just take take your temperature on climate change. What do you think we need to be doing about it? I mean, and then maybe most significantly, do you think in a general election that's something you should be campaigning on, that should be drawing that clear contrast between Mitch McConnell, who is never met a climate bill that he liked. He's never allowed to vote climate bills except for if he thinks he can score political points. Mm-hmm. He's never taken this seriously, and there is no more serious issue looking 30 years into the future than climate.
Sure. Well, let me tackle the last question first, because I think it's a really important one, and it broadens this out to the campaign trail. And it's one of the themes that I really want to talk about is this lack of national leadership. Okay. Think about the COVID-19 pandemic. This is the first time in 100 years that we have a major international crisis, and no one is looking at the United States for leadership. As an American, I don't like that. We should be leading right now. And if you look at the threats that our nation has faced in the 21st century, none of them have been normal, traditional threats. Think 9/11. That's an unconventional threat. And then we had the 2009 economic crash, another unconventional threat that hurt our economy. And then you have climate change, which is happening. I would say it's happening right now. That's an unconventional threat. And now, of course, the 2020 pandemic that we're all dealing with. And we have to have leaders in the Senate in the future that understand that we have to think about national security a different way. We can't have these thinkers from 1970 that think that the threats were the same as what they were 30, 40, 50 years ago. The threats of the future are real, and they are not the same as what they were in the past. I do not believe Mitch McConnell is able to think that way. We have to have some hard look at what this means. And particularly with climate change, I look at it as a national security concern. Why? Because look, the base that I learned how to air-to-air dogfight will be underwater in 50 years. Norfolk Naval Base will be having to restructure. Annapolis, Maryland, where I went to school, guess what? They used to have one flood every 6 years. Now they're having 6 floods in a year that cover a third of the base. The 3-star admiral there said, hey, you may not believe in climate change. Guess what? Water's coming. We're going to have to do something about it. And this is the difference between myself and Mitch McConnell. We can argue all day long about climate change, whether it's happening. It's happening. And if you don't believe me, believe every 4-star general and admiral in our military, because they're all planning for it. And the problem is we have, unfortunately, people like Mitch McConnell that still stick their head in the sand and look the other way. We cannot afford to have leaders do that anymore. We have to plan for it. We have to be investing in renewable energy. You know who's investing in renewable energy like crazy right now? China. And, you know, they are running with this. They're sinking a lot of money into it. And that's the future. That's the future. It's the future because it's more efficient. It's the future because it's cheaper. And we have to be investing in that. And frankly, us in Kentucky, we know energy. We powered this country in the 20th century. You know, with coal, we have the energy experts. We should have been leading not only the country, but the world. And instead, we had guys like Mitch McConnell that kept looking the other way. I will not do that. I want to invest in the future, know it's coming, and we got to have leaders that are clear-eyed about it to be able to move us forward and do it in a way that, which I know we can, where we still create good, solid, quality jobs in Kentucky. If we had leaders, we would be doing that right now.
Great. Thanks. Well, that's all the questions we have. Any final words to leave us with?
Well, the last thing I'll leave you with, you know, because I know there's a lot of talk about actions and words right now. You know, I am a person of action. I am somebody who I understand that leadership is action. Leadership is by example. You can talk a lot, but what do you do? And when I talk about healthcare, you know, I don't just talk. Everybody that's on my staff, guess what? They get fully paid healthcare. Why? Because it's so important. I don't just talk about minimum wage and making work pay as a talking point. You know, if you're a young person and you want to work on my campaign to defeat Mitch McConnell, you're going to be an intern. Guess what? I don't have any unpaid internships. They're all paid $15 an hour because that's what action is. You want to talk about voting? I don't just say go vote. Guess what? In the middle of a pandemic, you know what I hear from most Kentuckians? I don't know how to vote. So guess what? We made a website, KentuckyVotes.com, that has a drop-down menu for every single county in Kentucky. It tells you exactly how you can vote. Why? Because every county in Kentucky does it differently. We have a hotline number, 1-833-KY-VOTES. Why is that so important? There are counties in Kentucky and right there in Louisville, in the middle of the heart of metropolitan Louisville, where people do not have internet. So how do they get their ballots? How do they vote? They don't know. You can call that number and we will help you. That's what I'm talking about, action. It's not just words from me. It's not just, oh, I think we should do this. It's like I'm actually doing it within my campaign. So if that gives you any indication of what I'm going to be as a senator, there you have it. All right. I'm a person of action. I appreciate your organization. Let's go take down Mitch. Okay.
Let's do it.
Good luck on the campaign trail, Amy.
Great to see you, Amy.
Woo. All right. There they were. That's the top 3. So you've had your chance to see them in action. You've had your chance to see them answer our questions. I hope the questions didn't get too boring as you heard us repeat them. So yeah, we asked we asked 4 questions similarly to each candidate, and then added in one kind of curveball or wrinkle that was more indicative of kind of what we thought made sense for their campaign. So I hope it was instructive. I hope folks learned a lot. You know, this will, if you missed the beginning because you couldn't find the live stream because curse you, Facebook, you'll be able to repeat this and watch this, you know, kind of basically as soon as we're done, you'll be able to rewatch it. So if you missed the beginning, if you missed one of the candidates, go ahead and watch it. I think you should, because they all had, I think, interesting things to say. They're all clearly a wonderful contrast to Mitch McConnell. And I would gladly support any of them over the evil emperor, the man who is in D.C. right now, forcing through another unqualified, young, conservative, Mitch's minion to be on a lifetime appointment to a federal court to fight for corporations, to stop environmental protections, to stop LGBTQ rights, a laundry list of horrible judicial positions that are going to be forced down our throats by Mitch McConnell. So that's what's at stake here, folks. It's very significant. He's reshaping the judiciary. We'll all pay the price for that over the long haul.
So, and while we were doing our interviews, I was looking at the comments, you all. After June 23rd, it is our time to come together to put all our disagreements aside to vote Mitch out in November. So we're going to need all boots on the ground to support whoever our Democratic nominee is, and do all that we can do to vote Mitch out. We have to stay focused. Mitch is focused on what he's doing, so we have to be focused on our goal, because we deserve better. We deserve leadership that will speak up for the people. We deserve leadership that will feel like our voice matters. And so you all stay focused. That's my only thing to you all.
Absolutely.
And make sure you like the group. Like the page.
Like the page. We want to get to 2,000 so we can invite ourselves to our own debate. What I did want to point out, I was looking at my ballot, because again, I still haven't filled it out. I'm still not sure. Mm-hmm. I'm going to maybe rewatch the video and see what I think. But there's this big, long list of folks who are running for president. Obviously, not so germane right now because Vice President Biden hasn't wrapped up the nomination. He's got it. Mm-hmm. He's no longer the presumptive nominee. But I was thinking about this. A lot of these names, or a few of these names, have actually played a role in our race. So the fact that Andrew Yang, who's right on here, was one of the first folks to, I think, endorse in our Kentucky Senate race, right? So he endorsed Mike Broihier. Andrew's not on, not really in competition anymore, but he definitely showed a lot of, got a lot of attention from Mike. The fact that Mike was leading the UBI, I think, was certainly something that, Andrew Yang resonated with him. It's interesting to see him play a role. And then obviously this week, Bernie Sanders endorsed Representative Booker. So Charles got the AOC and Bernie endorsement. So there's Bernie Sanders. I don't know who Deval Patrick has endorsed. So these names that were there and then gone. John Delaney, anyone remember that guy? But what's interesting, Amy has endorsed Vice President Biden. I think at this point I'm sure they've all endorsed Vice President Biden. But earlier, when there were choices, she endorsed Vice President Biden, and Vice President Biden campaigned for her in 2018. I don't know, Denise, were you there out in Bath County?
No, I was not there. I was out there campaigning for my own self. So,
but it was a great event. It was a great event, and Vice President Biden was phenomenal, talking about how important it was to come together as a country. And that was my first chance to kind of shake his hand and talk to him. But
I'm upset I missed that opportunity to meet our soon-to-be President Biden. So I'm upset about that. Now that you brought it out to the forefront, but let's stay focused.
Now that I've reminded you, you missed that window.
Yeah,
it's too bad
because I was campaigning. Seriously.
Yeah, it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work getting that together. We worked really hard to make that a great event. But he was fantastic. I'd be interested, because we've had these other, endorsements. I wonder if Amy's campaign is talking to Biden right now to try to get an endorsement, or if she doesn't think it's something that she needs to be focused on. Anyway, it's been a great campaign. This has been a great week. I think these interviews were well timed because a lot more people are thinking a lot more critically about the race right now. And wait, Denise, how many days do people have to get their ballot in, or their request for a ballot in?
I believe it's 5 days. Today's the 10th. So you have 5 days to request your ballot. So go to Go Vote Kentucky, that's KY.com, and it will take you to a Secretary of State's office, and you can just request your ballot there, your absentee ballot. But you have to make sure once you fill it out that you send it, put it back in the mail. You have to do that. Don't fill it out and just sit it on your table and walk away. Put it in your mailbox and take it down to your clerks, because I believe pretty soon there will be a box. I know here in Fayette County there will be a box outside the clerk's office, I believe, and where you can just drop it there. Or you can go to the USPS, United States Postal Service, and just put it right there in the box, the blue box.
You've got
you
a few different things you got to do. No postage necessary, so you don't have to put postage on it, so it's good to go. But you do have to sign it a couple of different places. There's some directions. Follow the directions.
Sure.
Read the directions. Again,
read it.
Self-mailing. Once you fill them out, they will not magically get themselves to the to the county clerk's office. You are going to have to deliver them to the mailman, so he will deliver them. But again, you don't need to put any postage on it, so there's that. But do follow the directions and make sure you do it, people. I mean, this could be a very tight race. We've got 3. You just saw them. 3 incredibly competent, qualified, charismatic, compassionate folks who are fighting for your vote. This could come down to a handful of votes. We never know, but your vote definitely matters. I wanted to talk really quickly about what we're going to do next Monday. So it will be Moscow Mitch Monday on Monday. And so we're going to be coming at you live again. We are going to have a special guest, though. Now, Denise, can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay, great.
And so we're going to have Nancy Jo Kemper. She ran for Congress against Andy Barr, and she also is an Emerge Kentucky alumna, as I am. So she's
awesome.
Will be awesome.
So. I first came across her. She was one of the speakers that we had at our Nobody's Above the Law impeachment eve rally that we did in downtown Lexington the night before the House voted to impeach the president. She was one of the speakers, and she was so fired up. She's phenomenal. She, I think, was the head of the Kentucky Council of Churches for a while. She is a pastor. She's another Reverend Doctor. So, last week we had Reverend Dr. Leah Shade. This week we're going to have Reverend Dr. Nancy Jo Kemper. So, if you're a Reverend Doctor, hit us up. Maybe we'll have you on as well. But I think she's going to be phenomenal. She's fiery, passionate, super smart, and very, very political, obviously. So that's coming up. And one other thing I just wanted to say, go share our page, like our page, and share with your friends. We are going to be working hard between now and November 3rd to inform as many people as possible about what Mitch's agenda really is. What we want to give people is the best talking points, the best news, the information you can share with your friends, with your family, with your local newspaper. Write a letter to the editor about Mitch's agenda. And we went over it earlier, but just to keep in mind, as early as tomorrow, the full Senate will vote on Justin Walker's confirmation to the second most powerful court in the land, the Circuit Court in D.C. It's basically the kind of Supreme Court JV, and it is certainly that he's not qualified. He was found to be unqualified by the Bar Association, but they are slamming this appointment through. So let's definitely do something to stand up to that. All right. Folks, there it is. That's our live stream. Denise, thank you very, very much. Any final words, any final thoughts you wanted to share, any final viewers with?
Stay focused. Vote.
There it is. All right. You folks have a great evening. We will see you on Monday.
Bye, y'all.